Hello and welcome back to my channel. In case you're new here, my name is Vandeputte. I'm a time-lapse photographer living in London, still time travel tutorials. I am a time-lapse photographer. I've been doing this for quite a while now, almost a decade. I've had an enormous amount of very high-end commercial clients, a lot of big brands that I've worked with, destinations, you know, Microsoft, Ford, Canon, Panasonic, Tourism Dubai, Vanuatu, Philippines, Australia, you name it. They're all on my list of happy clients, or whatever you want to call it. And I was inspired by other people to do a story time video about how my career came to be. I have made a video about this in the past, but I feel like that deserves an update or an upgrade or whatever you want to call it. And I just want to walk you through how I came to be where I am right now, which is, you know, someone that's, I guess, quite well known in the time-lapse industry globally, with a lot of really cool clients and a lot of cool projects under my belt. So, story time. Let's begin at the beginning. I was born at a very young age, which is one of my favorite jokes that I always make at presentations, and it's much better when you can do this in front of a live audience where people can laugh and look at your body language. But anyways, fast forward to my teenager years, where my dream job was acting. I wanted to be an actor, and then I tried to do the entrance exams for drama school in Belgium, did a few, and I bombed horribly. Turns out I'm not a great actor, which is why I'm a YouTuber now. I wanted to be an actor because it seems really cool to be famous, well-known, to get paid to hang out with mates or cool people on set and just goof around and make money doing that. Mostly this was inspired by blooper reels on DVD box sets. I just absolutely loved that. But yeah, the acting thing did not work out. What did work out, though, it was my drive to still be involved in the film or TV industry somehow. So I found a degree for which I didn't need to do an entrance exam because I was scarred from the previous ones. And I found this degree in Brussels, which is an hour south of Antwerp by train, which is where I grew up. And I went to school in Brussels at the Ritz Academy. It's a, you know, it's a drama school as well. It's a film school. There's like technical degrees and stuff. But my degree, I graduated with a degree in film and video editing, specializing in documentary filmmaking, pretty much. I was in film school and I did 4 years over a 3-year degree due to excessive partying and having a good time as a young lad. But in that film school, in that degree, on one of the off-site missions that we did, where we were making mini documentaries while traveling with our class, I discovered this video called The Island by Terje Sjørgert. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly. A Scandinavian time-lapse photographer who I believe in 2000 and I want to say 10-ish posted this video on Vimeo, and I watched it and it blew me away. Jaw on the floor, socks off, whatever you want to call it. I did not know what I was looking at. The quality of these visuals, the fog rolling through valleys, acting like water, like waves, astro shots, stars, Milky Way things, moon rises. I was just like, what am I looking at? What is this? How is this made? And can I do that? And at the time, I had a Canon 600D that I just purchased. That was my first DSLR. And I did some Googling about, you know, what is time-lapse? How do you do a time-lapse? This and that. And I realized that I could install this extra firmware on my camera called Magic Lantern. So big props to the Magic Lantern dev team for making that possible, for allowing me to venture into the world of time-lapse photography on a DSLR. I had already, in hindsight, I had like a little, you know, I did a presentation a while back, and I realized that actually I was already playing with time-lapse before discovering time-lapse as a concept. I would do a time-lapse of my brother and me constructing a big Lego set, the Tower Bridge, which is funny, which is just around the corner here now. I would film myself building a ski jump in my friend's backyard in Switzerland, mowing the lawn, deconstructing walls. I would film that as video and then speed it up, which obviously, as I'm sure many of you know, is the worst way to do a time-lapse. If you want to find out why that is, I've got an ebook about everything I know about time-lapse, which I'll plug at the end of this video, but just want to flag it there. If you want to know more about, if you want to know everything that I know about time-lapse, that's all in that book. But I discovered that that was always kind of part of what I like to make. You know, I was Choose the Movie Maker back in the day, and I would always be making little travel videos and family holiday videos and this and that. And that was always this recurring element. So I'd like to think that I would discover time-lapse photography as a concept, as a hobby or whatever, down the line eventually. Like, this was triggered by that big video that I saw on Vimeo, but I think maybe I would have naturally come to that obsession, which is really what it was. It became an immediate obsession of mine, and it still is to this day. 10 years later now, I'm still shooting a time-lapse pretty much every day. I've got a GoPro running on the balcony now, and that's the kind of footage that we review on Fridays on the live streams, where we just look at the clouds and talk about clouds, which is pretty fun. So, in film school, just finished film school, heavily obsessed with time-lapse photography. I would be, what age am I there? Maybe 22 years old, I think, in Belgium, living in Antwerp still. And I land a job as a video editor, camera operator, director for an online educational company. And on the side, I'm still doing this time-lapse stuff constantly. And I remember saying to people, like, this is a hobby, and sadly, I think it will only ever be a hobby. Fast forward 10 years, and now I've got clients under my belt like Canon, Microsoft, Samsung, Ford, tourism operators of destinations like Dubai, Vanuatu, Philippines, Australia, like all these amazing global well-known brands and destinations that are now my clients, which is really something fantastic. So this video is about how did I go from thinking this will only ever be a hobby to having it as a very lucrative, very fulfilling career. How did that happen? That's the point of this video. So I remember telling people, like, who in the right mind is ever going to pay money for a time-lapse photographer? Because not only is it very expensive equipment that you need, cameras, lenses, batteries, sliders, tripods, cases to put them in. You got to travel to a cool place. You got to be in that place for hours and hours. Then you got to go home and then you offload it. And then you got to edit it for hours or days or weeks on end on really expensive equipment. All this time, all this energy, all this money to end up with 10 seconds of video, 20 seconds of video, relatively speaking, of course. Like, I was like, who in their right mind is ever going to pay for that? So, of course, it will always be a hobby. So how did I make that happen? How did I make this into a very fun and very fulfilling career? Here's the thing. That's the only way to make a time-lapse, is to put in that time and energy and effort and money. So you need to find the right people with the right vision and the right budget, because they are aware of what it costs, what it takes to create that kind of high quality, unique footage. So it's up to people, right? And I always attribute the success of my career not to my skill set or what I know, but to who I know. And so I will talk you through what happened from the early days in my career when time-lapse was a hobby and I would help some friends out for events and stuff on the side, to what it is now. In Belgium, 2012 still, I had this job. I was doing my 9-to-5 job, and on the side, in the evenings, I would go out and try and shoot astro and stuff and make little show reels of the city that I lived in, which was Antwerp. And I used that as a little bit of a promotional tool. Eventually, I got in touch with Stan from Epic Cinema, and I did like a mini internship before that job, actually. But he saw my work and he asked me, like, would you like to shoot that at Tomorrowland, which, if you don't know, is a really big EDM electronic dance music festival in Antwerp, again, where I'm from. And so he got me on the team for those after movies, which were incredibly successful, just the largest scale viral video at the time for that kind of event. It was really cool. And so Stan got me on board to be part of that crew, which was really cool for me to be involved in that. I was very hyped. I'm still very grateful for that. And so I managed to get some footage there, which was obviously pretty unique. Now, at the same time, I was experimenting with this other type of time-lapse, a niche within a niche called hyperlapse. Hyperlapse now is all over the place. It's built into your phone. Microsoft's got a research division about it. Instagram's got an app called hyperlapse. But at the time, when that was a new technique of shooting, it didn't even have a name. Even though it'd been done already in the 80s, the concept of a hyperlapse only got solidified with the word hyperlapse a few years later, maybe like the next year or 2 years after, via a post on a forum where we were discussing what to call it. I didn't invent hyperlapse, but I was part of a group of people. I think Mattia Biki was on that forum as well, a fellow time-lapser. And we were inspired by this Russian photographer called Swai on Vimeo. He was making these videos with this next level style of time-lapse. Walk lapse, hyperlapse, I forget all the other words that we were using for it, but he inspired us to try and emulate or simulate or replicate what he did in his videos. And eventually we figured it out. This is early days where I'm not entirely sure if the warp stabilizer was around just yet in After Effects, which is the stabilizing effect that you apply to your footage to get that really smooth, really extreme style time-lapse content, right? So we're figuring out how to do it. We eventually, solidified the name hyperlapse, and, fast forward years later, that's the thing. But so hyperlapse for me became this extra thing as well, which I was starting to specialize in. So I had my time-lapse skill and a bit of, time-lapse showreel content that I had, and then I added on top of that with the hyperlapse stuff. And that was really cool because really not a lot of people were doing it at the time. It's rife now. Everyone's doing it. It's pretty fun. It's been pretty fun to see it evolve and develop over the years. But so that set me kind of apart because there's really not a lot of people doing that at the time. And so with Stan from Epic Cinema, I did a couple more of those like festival jobs. I think we went to Germany once for a Q-Dance event and Tomorrowland and some other things. And I just kept doing it on the side as well. And I still had my 9 to 5 job. Now, that job was easy. It was comfortable, it was fun, I was surrounded by people kind of my age, it was close to where I lived, so I had decent enough pay straight out of film school, and it was comfortable. I was very, very deep inside of a very comfortable zone, which is not a place you want to stay for too long. What happens in the year 2013 started from before that. I had a really bad breakup, a relationship that kind of like shook me to my core, and I was like, I need to travel. I need to clear my mind. And a friend of mine, Alexis, he was studying in Sydney, Australia at the time. So I decided to go visit my friend in Australia, which is as far as I could go at the time, to go and clear my head. And we do this road trip from Brisbane up to Cairns, and we go snorkel at the Great Barrier Reef and this and that. And it was a wonderful trip. And in the last week of that trip, I meet a girl. Her name's Amelia. You may have heard of her. And I returned to Belgium, and Amelia and I, we keep chatting online, and we don't stop chatting online. And in the next few weeks, I unfortunately, sadly, lose one of my close friends in a motor accident, which I was there. I saw it all happen. It was quite a traumatic experience, quite a traumatic event. Not something I talk about often, but it is something that shapes you as a human. You know, you go through something that bad, and you know, once again, it really shakes you up. So you know, I have a bit of therapy and stuff to deal with that, but also I decide, or I feel that I want things to be different, and I'm still chatting to Amelia at the time, and I'm still doing some time lapses and stuff on the side, but I decide like I want to leave this environment that I'm in, and I decided to go back to Australia in September 2013 to see what would happen with Amelia. And that was just a big leap of faith, a Hail Mary, or whatever you want to call it, a jump out of that comfort zone. And so I traveled to Australia in September 2013, and with me I bring a skill set, a couple of €1,000 in savings. Luckily the dollar was like not worth a lot then, so 10,000 euros would be $20,000, which is lovely. And I can stay with Amelia's parents for a while. And that was, just an insane thing to think about, because I only met Amelia like the one time pretty much. And purely through an online conversation, we formed this bond. And that eventually got solidified in a physical real life relationship, which is really quite amazing. But the key takeaway there is that I was so far out of my comfort zone that you put yourself in this physical and mental different mindset where you have to do something. And so I was like, what do I want to do for a living? What do I want to do for work? And I love time-lapse still. I'm obsessed with it. I shot so many time-lapses and hyperlapses on that initial trip to Australia. And eventually I make this show reel with like a year's worth of footage. There's some Italy content in there. We did a breakdown of that edit on one of the live streams recently. There's content from Belgium, Italy, the Netherlands, bit of Australia in that show reel, and I decided to post that show reel online that I made by the time I got there, and that got me a lot of views. That is currently only couple hundred views away from 1 million views on YouTube, that video, which is fantastic. It's just really, really cool to think about. But then I used that as like a bit of a business card. You know, I had nothing to do, so I was just going around Sydney and shooting as many time lapses as possible. And again, now I'm going back to what I said earlier. It's about who you know, right? So through Stan from Epic Cinema, I meet Wissam at Tomorrowland, who's part of that film crew as well. And Wissam's from Sydney. And he's, quite well connected there, and we really hit it off. We get along, becomes a good friend. And he introduces me to someone else. He's like, oh, Abraham, you should meet Matthew. Matthew does some really cool time-lapse and hyperlapse work. And Abraham likes what he sees. He was at the time running a company called Entitled Filmworks, doing a lot of like high-end wedding shoots and some event stuff as well. And he kind of takes me under his wing for a lot of this and gives me my first couple of paid jobs in Sydney, in Australia. And I, do some other odd photography and videography jobs on the side. But all of a sudden it starts to grow because I met someone that had the right vision and the right budgets for these kinds of things. And all of a sudden, here and there, every, maybe once a month or something, I get a job that is time-lapse and hyperlapse photography. Like I shot hyperlapses for like a wedding. A guy specifically requested a hyperlapse shooter on that. I think because of my showreel, he saw my showreel because it went so viral. He's like, I want that on my wedding film, which is pretty funny to think about. And through that, also other events, again with Stan involved in Q dance events in Australia, in Sydney. And so from that, my professional network locally in Australia started to grow, which is exactly what you need. So then the next step is, just shoot as much as possible and talk to as many people as possible. And on the previous live stream I talked about like a couple of key things that you need for this kind of networking or to get better at it. First of all, you need to be a likable person and be comfortable to talk to, because it really is about people. So if you're not great with your social skills, there are many books that you can read or courses that you can follow. Maybe even I'm a bit, naturally gifted, I think, when it comes to being a social animal. I like meeting new people, and I like to think that people like to meet me as well. So yeah, being quite easygoing socially, I find it easy to meet people and to network, and I always carry business cards with me, and on that it said hyperlapse photographer, which people are like, oh, what is a hyperlapse photographer? And then I show them, and it's showing that. I always had something bookmarked on my phone, an easy like 10, 20, 30 second video reel that I could show people, and it would blow them away because this footage was never really used before. It didn't really exist much before then, and so I could blow people's minds on the spot, and they would always remember how they felt when they saw that footage. And from there, I just did that as much as possible. I went to photo gallery openings, I went to art shows, I went to Instagram meetups, photo meetups, photo walks, whatever it is, organized my own meetups, started to post a lot on Instagram, and from that, my social media account started growing as well. So I, slowly but surely became an influencer. Never was that the goal, obviously, in my story as a commercial time-lapse photographer, but it just happened, right place, right time, shooting a lot of really unique, really high-end footage that was different from what other people were doing, and sharing that online. And through that, connecting with brands and agencies and firms in Sydney as well, events companies that wanted me to shoot their bump in or bump out of an event, or they needed some footage for an ad campaign or a film, whatever. So I split up in quite a few different income streams, which is what my other book is about as well. But let's fast forward a bit, and what I'm doing in Australia is just, still networking my ass off pretty much, but showing people this unique kind of footage that I'm really good at, that I'm really efficient at, and I build out this huge network of professional clients, which is bloody lovely. I was making quite a lot of money, really good money actually, and just kept doing that. Social media keeps growing on the side, so I've got my income as a commercial time-lapse and hyperlapse photographer, and I've got my income as a social media influencer, whatever you want to call it. Now, Australia is notoriously difficult to stay in. We decided not to go for a partner visa because we wanted me to do my own thing. So I applied to become a permanent resident in the country with this very niche visa. I think it's an 858 or something like that, but it's called a Distinguished Talent Permanent Residency Visa. And there's only 200 of those a year apparently that they give out. And I applied using my hyperlapse photography as my distinguished talent. And I had to prove to them that I would be beneficial for the economy, for culture, for all that, which I managed to do. I gave them a stack of documents, some of my media appearances from back in Belgium, features on in print media, online media, and it showed them that what I have is quite a unique skill, and that I am already working with tourism boards and destinations to, increase the economy through tourism or be part of culture with, art projects and this and that. And all of a sudden, I was an Australian permanent resident. Fast forward from that, now I'm currently an Australian citizen as well. Well done me, all based on a couple of time-lapse clips, which is pretty damn fun. Now back to those key things that I want to recommend to people, because I get the question quite a bit, how do I become like you, Matthew? Like, how do I get there? And it really is quite simple. As I mentioned, first of all, you got to be good with people, because it is really all about people. From that first internship email I sent to Stan, who I met with Sam through, who I met Abraham through, who then led to so many other jobs and connections with Canon Australia and this and that. It's about people. It's not necessarily about your skill set. It's about who you know. So make sure to be on top of that. Secondly, what you do obviously has to be good enough. You can't expect to make a lot of money or to become famous in whatever kind of industry or niche or sector if what you do isn't good enough. So train, shoot, fail, repeat, learn. That's like my mantra. Shoot, fail, learn, repeat is what I always recommend people doing. What I see so often when people reach out is like, how do I become how do I do what you do? It's like, well, you need to be better first. Why would someone pay you, $2,000 a day if your work is like really amateur base level? So keep training, keep becoming better. Never stop pushing yourself. Never stop learning. And it's this learning that I could have fast-tracked myself if there were resources available for me at the time, which they weren't, which is why I made, down the line in my career, my ebook, The Ultimate Time-Lapse Guide, which we'll talk more about later. Just wanted to flag it again. So it's all about people. So be good with people. Then you need to be good at what you do, right? And then you need to show people how you can make their product better, or their life better, or their campaign better. You need to show your value to them, as opposed to you trying to get money from them for doing something. So you got to have that mental shift, that mindset shift, where it really is just really important that you show people how you can improve their lives, or how you can improve their situation, whatever it is, which is what I try to do with my ebooks. Is I teach people I tell people that if you get this, you will fast track your learning. That shoot, fail, learn, repeat stuff. You don't need to fail as much if you have a really good baseline. Same with my passive income ebook. You don't need to fail as much. You can just follow the framework that is in that book that will help you to set up stuff for yourself. Use other people's experience. Use other people's learnings. Go online. I'm a self-taught photographer. I didn't tell you that at the beginning. Yeah, I just kind of forgot. But I'm a totally self-taught photographer. I went to film school to be an editor, but they didn't teach us how to do photography there, or videography even. Like all my travel films, the travel film clients that I've had, all these destinations, besides the time-lapse stuff like for Philippines tourism, I made travel videos as well. And again, completely self-taught. I bought myself a camera with the money I made from time-lapse photography, and I taught myself how to be better at video, inspired by people like Wissam and Stan and Abraham and all these guys. So all about people, be good with people, have good work. So be good at what you do. Never stop improving, never stop learning, because everyone else is catching up constantly. So always push yourself to learn new things. And the most important thing is show people what you can offer them. Now, practically, I always carry around business cards that have my contact info on there. And when I give that to people, I also show them what I do, because it is so much more impactful to show people what you do than to describe it or talk about it. Like I could be like, oh yeah, I shoot the clouds, and clouds move in interesting ways. And people are like, okay. But then I show them a 10-second video of my Instagram that I uploaded recently, and they're like, whoa, I did not know that clouds could do that. Or, whatever. Just have something on hand at all times, because you never know when you're going to meet someone that can potentially change your life. I can trace back a lot of my career to that one email I sent to Stan, like, hey, I need an internship, can I come and have a chat with you? Through that, all these other things happened. I'm not saying that the success of my career is all because of that one person or that one email, but it played a part in it. So think about that when you are thinking of becoming a commercial time-lapse photographer. I have a second YouTube channel that I've got a range of content that's coming out very soon about how to be a more successful creator or creative, depending on how you look at it. With that, my book about passive income teaches you how to set up a passive income system which will complement your commercial work, and I'll teach you how to price projects, how to find clients, we can make business cards, or like how to strategize and stuff. That's all coming, so the link's down below. If you want to be a great time-lapse photographer, I have this decade worth of knowledge. Everything I know about time-lapse photography is put into the Ultimate Time-Lapse Guide, which I'm now transforming into a video course as well. And that's pretty much it. That's kind of my 10-year history of being a time-lapse photographer, condensed down into, what are we now at? Yeah, a couple of minutes of filming. If you're wondering what I'm doing in London right now, that girl I moved to Australia for, Amelia, she down the line, she's like, I want to work and live in London for a bit. And I was like, oh, let's do it. It filled me with anxiety at first, and you can read this whole story in one of my ebooks, but it filled me with anxiety until I realized that I had done this before, and that I was so comfortable in my comfort zone in Sydney at the time that the thought of going to London, where I have no social or professional network, it filled me with anxiety. And then I realized, that's great. You're going to put yourself in a zone that you're not familiar with, and it's going to drive you to make new things and to do better things. And that's how my ebooks came to be, my passive income strategy, all of that came out of leaving my comfort zone once again. So I'm very, very grateful for that. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, please. Check out my ebooks. I really do think they can change your life, and they have already changed the lives of hundreds and hundreds of people who've purchased them and sent me messages and comments about how inspiring it is, how good it is, how it's kicked them up the butt to do something new or to try stuff in different ways. And that's just wonderful to read from my end. So yeah, that's pretty much my story of how I became a time-lapse photographer. And yeah, you know I'm bad at endings, right? Watch some of my other stuff here. Leave us a comment, subscribe if you like this and if you haven't already. And that's pretty much it. Have a good day. Bye.